Wife cheating with a student. Elvis died in the toilet. Everyone knows that. Judy Garland did too, bless her. But not many people know that King George XI also died in a toilet. On the toilet, to be exact. I'm a historian, so it seems appropriate that my life would end the same way. I may not die, of course. I think I had a stroke in the toilet of my favorite pub by the harbor. I have a really bad headache right now. I guess there are worse ways to die. I've just had a great meal and a pint of my favorite ale. A lot of men would be happy to meet their maker after that. What a shame I had to overhear Ben Mortimer discussing how great my loving wife Mim makes love. What a gorgeous shape and wonderfully responsive nipples she has. How great she kisses and does some pretty spectacular stunts. After 32 years of marriage, of course, I knew all this, but I'd like to die without knowing that someone else knew it too. But what I didn't know was how beautiful love is. Of course, I might not die, I might live. If I do, I'll teach Ben Mortimer a lesson he'll never forget. You little bastard. I don't often go to the pub alone, usually with friends or Mim. But this time she was visiting her parents for a sleepover, so to avoid cooking myself, I decided to have dinner at the pub, steak and chips if anyone's interested. I am a history teacher at a local secondary school in North Yorkshire. I have worked there for over 30 years. I often teach the children of the children I used to teach. I haven't taught their grandchildren yet, but that's probably not far off. I noticed Ben Mortimer and his buddy Kieran Yates propping up the bar. I did a quick count and realized that it had been about 3 years since I'd last taught them. They were now over 18, so they were allowed to drink. After eating, I went over and chatted with them to see what they were doing now. Turns out they both work at the cookie factory, as does Mim. They're on the shop floor, and she works as secretary to the managing director. Kieran chuckled into his beer when I asked if they knew her. Ben said he'd seen her a few times when he had to report to his boss. "She's a nice woman," he said. We laughed, and I bought them both a drink as we talked. I said goodbye and decided to stop by the restroom on the way out. Was just getting comfortable on the toilet when I heard 2 guys walk in. "I don't know how you can be so cool about this, Ben. Mr. Moore is such a nice guy. Just bought us both a pint of beer. He was the best teacher I ever had. I couldn't stand history until we had him. How can you talk to him so normally when you're sleeping with his missus?" "Because I think he's a great guy, too, so I don't do anything to hurt him. I like him a lot, really. I just like Mrs. Moore better." "You bet you do." Kieran chuckled. "But it's still wrong. Look, I'm doing him a favor, buddy. It's not my fault he can't get up anymore, is it? I'm kind of his stuntman, giving her what he can't. And believe me, if it wasn't me, it'd be someone else. I'm not threatening their marriage, am I? A 53-year-old woman won't want to run away with me, and neither will I with her. Better me than some older guy who could be a real threat. I'm doing them both a favor. And I still think he's a good guy. You want to see his artifact collection? He's got some really cool stuff in his home office. You're gonna love it." All of a sudden, Ben and Kyle came to love my toys like the kids they still were, and were enamored with my toys as well as my wife's. The thing with Mrs. Moore was sex, pure and simple. Fantastic, but no more. After talking some more about the delights of my wife's body, they left. The tingling was getting worse and worse. Fortunately, someone came in shortly afterward, and I managed to get their attention. I think I was telling them to call an ambulance. That's what it sounded like in my head, but not in reality. Luckily, they realized I wasn't just a drunk, called an ambulance, and now I'm in the hospital. I leaned back on my pillow and thought about Mim and me. We've been married 32 years. We got married on Mim's 21st birthday. We have no children. That was a disappointment to me, but not to Mim. She didn't want children. I did, however, but I wanted Mim more. End of story. She was enough for me, always had been enough. I thought I was enough for her. I did until I didn't anymore. Not having kids meant we could travel and do whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. It gave us a sense of freedom that other couples our age with children to support didn't have. It also gave us some extra income to play with. Although we are not rich, we were easily able to keep up with the mortgage and paid it off years ago. We have a nice house. Not huge, but we don't need that much space for the 2 of us. In fact, we didn't even need the 2 spare bedrooms. One of them was used by Mim as a dressing room. She had beautiful clothes and liked to look good. The other spare room was my home office. I have always been fascinated with history and kept my collection of military maps, memorabilia, and other artifacts and collections there. It's not as bad as it looks, I swear. Everything was once used in classes at school. Tools of my trade, if you will. Mim, on the other hand, was just glad it was all stored there and all my junk wasn't encroaching on the rest of the house. I prided myself on being a good teacher. Knew that my love of history was not shared by many to the same degree. Those who don't have that passion consider it a dry subject. My mission is to make it as engaging and relevant to the children in my classes as possible. I think to some extent I have succeeded in doing that. I tried to make it fun and interesting. I don't want to brag, but my popularity with the kids sometimes caused a little professional jealousy, but I dealt with it. If sometimes the kids liked me more than my subject, I didn't mind. They were still learning. I'm of average build myself. I keep myself in shape, but Mim was always a beauty to me. She was an average young woman, but she has aged very well. She always had big breasts. When we first met, she complimented me on the fact that I always make eye contact with her. Most guys stare at her breasts. I hated to admit that I was just very skillful at staring at them every time she looked away. Every single time. Her breasts had mesmerized me since we first met 34 years ago. I revered them, and being laughed at in the pub toilet as big old breasts made me angrier than I could express. I'd better take a few deep breaths. They give me a chance to keep my blood pressure up. Meme and I had never had anyone else. Well, at least I have. When we met, I was a virgin. We've always had a very good sex life. Unlike most couples, we kept the same pace when we turned 30 and then 40. We both had a strong sex drive, and without the distraction of children, we continued to live our lives as we had in the early years of our marriage. We were never bored, experimenting and giving everything a new spice, a little role-playing here and a lot of love-making there. It was like that until Mim turned 40 and went through menopause. It was a very hard blow. She really did take it very badly. At that point, our love life completely stopped. I wasn't even allowed to touch her. If I tried to cuddle, it meant I only want one thing. And if I offered to make love, I was an insensitive bastard. Am I not guessing her feelings? Well, no, I didn't guess. But as a loving husband, I tried my best to support her. So we went from a very fulfilling sex life to a dead bedroom. The love had been gone for 2 years. I offered to put a bed in my office to leave her alone. Honestly, I thought she would be pleased. She could set the bedroom to the temperature she wanted and not be afraid that I might jump her at any second. In a selfish sense, it's hard for me, literally, I'm hard, to be in the same room with her. There's not only the visual arousal of seeing her dress and undress, but also the smell of her when I lay next to her. It's torture for me. Added to that is the fact that I've been freezing like hell since she keeps the window open deep in the winter because she's so hot all the time. When I offered to move out temporarily, I became evil personified. I reject her. I don't care. I'm cruel. Let's just say I never moved out of our bedroom. No, I stayed, freezing, frustrated, but satisfied that in my useless life, I am the husband who supports her. Suddenly, like a spring flower awakening at 52, things got better again for Mim. The menopause fairy flew off to find her next victim. She left Miriam with a few extra curves which suited her just fine. Unlike some women, the menopause fairy also left Mim with a renewed sex drive. Unfortunately, over the years I seem to have lost my desire. At first I thought it was just from lack of use, but no, it was erectile dysfunction. My doctor at the time was young and completely unsympathetic. He did not reassure me or help in any way to alleviate my plight. Clearly felt that this old stump shouldn't have to worry about such things. He explained that it was a side effect of my blood pressure medication and that it would have to be tolerated. He was very correct. I was shocked. I felt embarrassed and humiliated. It was hard enough to go and ask for help. I decided to look at it from a strategic perspective. I could either give up lovemaking completely or I could adopt a new way of making love to my wife. My pleasure is her pleasure. I still have my hands and tongue, don't I? I had missed the closeness and intimacy with Mim for so long. I wasn't about to lose them again. We continued to make love, but in a different way. Don't they say the biggest sexual organ is the brain? We made love 2 or 3 times a week. She continued to experience many pleasures, but it wasn't just her. I had a newfound confidence and pride that I could still give her such pleasure. As far as intimacy was concerned, I was more than happy to use toys to fulfill that need. My one bit of male pride was that the toys I used on her could only be used when she was with me. Silly, I know, but I needed to feel that they were an extension of me. She has other toys that she could use on her own if she felt the need. So, we were happy, I thought. I was still satisfying her. As for me, I had rediscovered the joy of being cuddled, caressed, and kissed. I was cherished, and Mim was still desirable. I thought that was enough. I was wrong. The hospital soon discovered that my stroke was ischemic, so a combination of medications was soon prescribed. Time was of the essence to prevent further damage and another stroke. Thankfully, I regained my voice, although finding the right words was a problem for me at first. A lovely nurse called Louise said they had contacted Mim, although she was still several hours away. I managed to tell her that I did not want to see her under any circumstances. I think Louise thought this was part of my frustration until she saw my blood pressure start to rise dramatically. I asked her to call my sister to come over. She was local, and I knew she would come much faster than Mim anyway. My big sister would help me. Our Margaret is a big girl, 5'5" in stockings, size 9, by the way. She protected me as a child, and I knew she would be there for me. It seemed like only a few minutes had passed since they'd called, and she appeared. Sister Louise asked if she had flown. "Only on a motorcycle, honey. It's a Kawasaki. When I need it, it flies." With those words, she hugged me tightly and wiped a tear from my cheek. "You're a big, stupid bastard. You made me cry. You scared me so much. Don't you dare do that to me again. If you die on me, I'll fucking kill you." We all laughed about it, even Nurse Louise. I told our Margaret what had happened, what I'd heard. I didn't mind Louise hearing it too. "I'll make sure she doesn't get to you. I must make sure we keep you as safe as possible. You might want to list your sister as next of kin on your hospital forms. Actually, the law doesn't specify that. You can name anyone," Louise said. "Well, I'm his closest blood relative," said Margaret. "We're the only ones we have of each other now. I was told later that Mim was not happy when she was told I didn't want to see her. Of course, she didn't know why and made a real fuss. I don't blame her. I had no doubt that she was very worried about me, but deep down I also knew that she still loved me. Her concern for me was the beginning of her punishment. I need to talk to her. I knew that. I wasn't going to end a 32-year marriage without talking, but I also had no doubt that the marriage was over. She could make me a cuckold, but I sure as hell wasn't going to be either willing or knowing. Eventually, Mim saw our Margaret. She was waiting for her in the parking lot outside the hospital. I told Margaret to talk as long as it took, but no more. When Mim had finished crying and was satisfied that I was in no immediate danger, she asked why I didn't want to see her. Margaret simply said, "You almost killed my brother with your pranks. You're a dirty fool. I don't want to talk to you anymore." With that, she lowered her helmet and roared off into the night. When I got out of the hospital, I went to see Margaret. She still lives in Mom's bungalow. She bought my share after Mom died. I was discharged with a list of rehabilitation instructions. Fortunately, I had recovered enough to be at home, but needed a range of therapies and support to improve further. I had only been at Margaret's for one day when I asked her to invite Mim over. I needed to have the conversation I had been avoiding. I needed to hear what she had to say. I wished I could say that at least some part of me could forgive her. I loved her for so long, and still loved, well, the woman I thought she was. I also knew I was a vindictive, stubborn Yorkshireman. Combined with male pride and ego, I didn't think I was capable of forgiving her even if I wanted to. I need to be able to look at myself in the mirror with a modicum of pride. At that moment, I couldn't do that. I asked Margaret to keep a low profile. She disappeared on her bike in her full outfit, leaving the door on the latch for Mim to enter. She looked worse than I did. Her eyes were puffy from crying, and she didn't look like she'd had a good night's sleep. "Trevor, I don't know whether to kiss you or slap you. Do you have any idea how worried I was about you? If you thought you were saving me heartache by not letting me see you, you were wrong. I can't eat. I can't sleep. So it's all about how it's affecting you, Mim? No, but I just don't understand why you have to be so cruel." "You know why, Mim. Think about it. I know you've been thinking about what Margaret said to you. What could you have done that would upset me enough to put me in hospital and make Margaret refuse to talk to you? I'll give you a clue. Would you like that? Ben Mortimer. She had the decency to flinch when I said his name. She gathered her thoughts quickly. What about him? He's just a silly boy at work. A stupid boy you're servicing. How did you know? I was so careful. Well, unfortunately, not careful enough to sleep with someone old enough to be discreet. I heard him telling his buddy Kieran how great you are. The look of horror on her face was picturesque. I'm so sorry you had to hear that. It must have been horrible for you. Well, it was so bad they put me in the hospital. Honey, you shouldn't have let it upset you. It's no big deal. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything to me. To us. I don't have any feelings for him. Except lust. He's just another toy. You still satisfied me in your own way. Very satisfying. There was just something missing. When I had the opportunity for real feelings, I couldn't resist. Couldn't or wouldn't. You left me without love for 2 years. 2 years. It wasn't my fault. It was menopause. That's when I really lost control. And it wasn't my fault. It was because I was sick. In sickness and in health, remember that? Forsaking all others. Doesn't that ring a bell? It's okay for me to be unsatisfied, but not for you? Is that it? My God, your selfishness is unbelievable. The real difference is that you left me with no affection, no hugs, no kisses, no nothing for 2 years. I still loved you. I was still there for you. You left me for 2 years and completely rejected me. You rejected me, Meme, and now you've done it again. She turned away, unable to look at me. Imagine what it was like for me to listen to a couple guys making fun of my wife, talking about her like she was some street cheater, talking about my most personal medical situation. How are they laughing because I can't pick it up? Doing things to him that you haven't done to me in years. In my own home. You even let that little shit into my private office. What have I ever done for you besides love you? What have I done for you to deserve such disrespect? That's not what happened. You're twisting things. I didn't disrespect you. I just used him. It didn't affect my love for you in any way. It was separate. It was a need, that's all. So no tenderness? No real intimacy? Yes, that's right. Just the physical act. I waited until I was sure she was looking me in the eye. Mim, you're mistaken. No real intimacy? I think letting someone else into your body is probably the most intimate thing you can do. What about kissing? What about kissing? Do you care about kissing? She snorted. You do know that historically, easygoing girls don't kiss their clients because it's considered too intimate. Are you saying I'm an easygoing girl? I've only been in bed with 2 men in my entire life. You and him. Is this to make me feel better? I'm not saying you are, Mim. Right now, I have more respect for the people in this business than I do for you. I've seen her anger building. Enough of this. You're being disgusting. You're starting to piss me off, Trevor Moore. Go and get your stuff. You're coming home with me now. We need to forget all this nonsense and get back to normal. What do you consider normal, Mim? Normal when you use teenagers in our bed, or normal when I had a faithful, devoted wife? I don't quite know how much you're freezing your head off if you choose the latter. You're being ridiculous right now. You're coming home with me. I need to take care of you. I can't stand it when you need me. I'm not coming home, Meme, and I sure as hell don't need you. I love you. I can't help it. I wish I could, but I don't need you, and I certainly don't want you. You can't be serious. Yes, you don't seem to realize what you've done to me, our marriage or our love. The fact that you don't seem to give your actions any meaning has told me all I need to know. Our views and needs are too far apart. I'm shocked that you haven't even apologized. I'll be honest with you. You deserve it after all these years. If you had even given yourself to my mercy and begged for forgiveness, I doubt it would have made a difference. But we'll never know, will we? In fact, you don't feel you've done anything wrong. You're sorry I found out, but you're not sorry you did. That's why our marriage is over, and that's why I'm divorcing you. You took something very precious to me and broke it without any respect. I just can't give you what you need anymore. So I'm freeing you to have everything you need. I'm also releasing myself, as apparently being married to you is very dangerous to my health. That would be the end of the conversation, but of course real life isn't like that. Mim isn't finished yet. You're talking nonsense. There won't be a divorce. You're coming home with me. Now. I love you and I need you. You can't throw away 32 years of marriage over this. I can't believe you can be so selfish. It was nothing. It was nothing. That's the problem, Mim. It was nothing to me. The level of disrespect you showed me in my own damn house, unbelievable. Am I selfish? Now back off before you give me another blow. Shortly after she left, I heard Margaret returning on her bike. She drove right into the garage, but didn't go in the house. I went into the garage myself to tell her what had happened. She was just putting a screw in the rear license plate. Don't ask, she smiled. It's just that I was preparing a little gift for my favorite brother. Just for my brother. Well, you'll still be my favorite. So what did my ex-sister-in-law have to say for herself? Did she apologize profusely? Not really. No, I don't think so. She was always a self-righteous fool, even though you couldn't see it. Come on, kid, onward and upward. I'll make us each a cup of tea. It was a few days later when I read in the local paper that Ben Mortimer, aged 19, had fallen down a staircase in the old town. This staircase was very dark and narrow, sandwiched between rows of Jogian terraces. It led down to the waterfront, and was very popular with the boozers who lingered on their way home. It reeked of urine. Poor Ben, broken leg, broken collarbone, lots of ribs and piss all over him. Embarrassing. There was a picture of him. He looked awful. Wasn't it lucky it happened when I was with Mim? Wasn't it lucky that the police still hadn't found a possible witness to the accident? Tall guy in motorcycle clothes. Thanks for the gift, I said, holding out the newspaper to Margaret. I have no idea what you're talking about, she smirked. Here's a present from me. I opened the box she handed me and found a small selection of World War I medals. Thought you might like them. I found them in a store in the old town. Mim and I divorced, of course. She put up a bit of a fight. She never seemed to get over the shock that I couldn't just accept her infidelity. After selling the house, we both bought apartments at opposite ends of town. Our paths crossed surprisingly rarely. I went back to work. I'll admit that first Christmas I had a tough time. I put on a show at work, drowning my sorrows, I suppose. One of the young guys, Darren, drove me home and I told him my story. His reaction and the support he gave me convinced me that any man in my shoes would have done the same. My retirement was still a lonely one. Margaret and I spent a lot of time together until she packed up and retired to Greece. I still saw her for the holidays. Life became a little dull for a while, although I was still preoccupied with my story. At the age of 65, I had a new neighbor, Brenda. We became good friends, companions, and eventually more than that. We grew to love each other. The closeness between us grew until we were sleeping in the same bed and making love in our own way. One night, fairly early in this new phase of our relationship, something happened. Literally. We didn't waste any time, of course. I rushed to the doctor's office as soon as possible to see if this was an isolated incident. There was an elderly doctor there who was shocked to learn that I had received so little support in the past. He was also saddened to learn that my erectile dysfunction had played a major role in the breakup of my first marriage. With his help and a minor change in medication, getting and maintaining my health was no longer a problem. It was all sorted out by the time we went on our honeymoon. That was 10 years ago. We are now 75 and still very much in love. As far as I know, Mim never remarried. She left after I remarried. The last time I saw her, she was very embittered. There was a toughness and resentment about her that wasn't there before. It was right after Brenda and I got engaged. We were sitting in our favorite cafe drinking coffee when Mim showed up. I introduced them, and Mim said something so angry it took my breath away. Well, I hope you can live without a full-blown love, because he hasn't been able to get it up for years. I think, dear, that he may just need the right woman. He certainly gave me something very nice this morning before breakfast, Brenda said with a smirk. Mim looked at me. Did he? Yes, really, Mim. Turns out I just needed to be with someone loving and selfless who really cared about me. With those words, Mim walked away. Jealousy is a terrible thing, I should know. I experienced it very acutely once. Let's hope she found what she wanted. I found, after all, a loving, faithful wife. Oddly enough, Ben Mortimer is now our mailman. He's almost 40. He was horrified when he saw me open the door to our apartment that first time. He apologized for what happened, saying he was just a silly, horny boy then who didn't know any better. Now he's happily married and even more ashamed of what happened. Especially because you were always my favorite teacher. I am so ashamed of what I did. I will always regret it. I told my wife everything when we were dating, and she was so disgusted when I told her about it. It took me a while to convince her to marry me, as she said she couldn't be with someone who didn't honor her marriage vows. Eventually, I convinced her that I had learned from my mistakes. I hope in time I can convince you of the same. That won't be necessary, Ben. That was 20 years ago. Ancient history. I appreciate your apology. It's more than I've ever gotten from Mim. Anyway, we've all moved on. How about being an old teacher and former student again? Then I did something I never thought I could do. I shook his hand. I also managed to throw into the conversation that my medical issues were long ago resolved. I think I embarrassed him. People really don't like to think of retired people making love. Now when I see him, we laugh and joke around. I always tell him when he leaves to be careful on the stairs. The end.